Romeo and Juliet. The themes. Themes are the fundamental and often universal ideas explored in a literary work. The first theme we see in Romeo and Juliet is that of fate. So we need to look at the inevitability of fate. Fate plays a big role in the plot and tragedy from beginning to end. The prologue itself speaks of fatal loins, star-crossed lovers, and death-marked love. And so it shows us that fate has the lovers marked for sorrow and tragedy. They are being set up by fate from the beginning. Fate is against them from the beginning. So if we look at some of the elements within Fate, the feud is never explained. It's a driving force in Fate's work, and the audience must just accept it as an undeniable fact of the plot. Romeo claims it is his fortune to read the Capulet invite. Fate makes sure that he meets Juliet by having a Capulet servant by chance walk up to him and ask him to read out the invite. Then we see the series of incidents that prevent the letter from reaching Romeo that says that Juliet is not really dead. We see Romeo and Juliet's timing in the tomb where they wake up just as the other is about to die or just as the other is going to die. And also Romeo's defiance and determination make him play into the hands of fate. His determination to be with Juliet despite everything that is against them makes him play into the hands of fate. And we see this when he says, I defy these stars, but in the end, fate still wins. Now, the theme of love is obviously a central theme within one of the greatest love stories ever to have been written. And so we see the types of love within the story. We see the sensual, physical love as perpetuated by the nurse. Then we see the proper contractual love represented by Paris, and then the passionate romantic love represented by Romeo and Juliet. Now, the lovers represent or present an obstacle to themselves in that Romeo has a more immature approach to love, whereas Juliet has a more firm and practical approach. And you see that while they do love each other so much, they actually have a few conflicting ideas about how they're supposed to love each other. Lovers also have an accelerated love. I mean, the play takes place in like 6 days, and all of these things happen in 6 days. And so we see early on in the play, Capulet claims that Juliet is too young to be married. The lovers meet, they fall in love at first sight, and they get married the very next day. Capulet then decides that Juliet is not too young to get married, and he speeds up Juliet's marriage to Paris, which forces her to fake her own death. Then we look at the timing again of their waking up and trying to kill themselves in the tomb, and really their haste, the haste with which they got married and fell in love really can bring into question the legitimacy of their affection. Were they truly in love, or were they maybe just in lust? Love in Romeo and Juliet is also a violent love, and so violence follows the lovers from the beginning of the play. Their love is also considered amoral. It is so passionate and so intense that it overrides everything, including life itself, and that's why they are so willing to commit suicide for each other when they think they can't be with each other anymore. And the feud is also a backdrop to their love throughout the play, which provides a violent backdrop to the play. So within this theme of violent love, we see that Romeo foresees his death when he goes to the feast. He has that quick vision. Tybalt recognizes Romeo and determines to kill him as Romeo sees Juliet. This is no accident. As soon as Romeo sees Juliet and falls in love with him, there is a threat on his life. Juliet sees Romeo's death after their wedding night when he's climbing back down the balcony. She has a vision of him dying. Both lovers actually threaten suicide with a knife in Friar Lawrence's cell, just 3 scenes apart from each other, and then the lovers' inevitable double suicide, which is spoken about in the prologue. Another theme is the individual versus the society. Now, societal institutions of Shakespeare's day are obstacles to the lovers. They are trying so hard to preserve their love and to be in love without having society tell them what to do, but there are just constant obstacles that come into their way. So the first is that marriage is decided by the father. It being a patriarchal society, the father has to give consent to marriage. And obviously, Lord Capulet would never agree to Juliet marrying Romeo Montague, and he wants her to marry Paris, and so that is an obstacle to their love. There's also the societal institution of masculine honor, and this is why Romeo has to avenge Mercutio when Tybalt kills Mercutio, and that obviously leads to a ton of difficulties for the lovers, as Tybalt was Juliet's cousin, and now it's her new husband who has killed him, but Romeo had to be honorable to Mercutio and avenge him. Then, obviously, religion, a massive part of the society. Romeo and Juliet have quite blasphemous conversations. When they first meet, Juliet calls Romeo the god of her idolatry, and they have these conversations in which they kind of replace God in their lives with each other, and that is extremely blasphemous. And as well as their suicide. If you remember, Elizabethans thought that suicide was a mortal sin. And it would appear that their love can only overcome these absurd societal norms through death. And Shakespeare may be making a point that society and societal institutions are so ridiculous that these lovers who are just trying to be individuals, who are just trying to love each other as purely as possible, can only achieve their love through death. Masculinity is a massive theme in this play. And so we see Mercutio is this eccentric, showy, flashy man who enjoys quarreling and joking. And he actually criticizes Tybalt's interest in clothes, and he criticizes Romeo's love melancholy and calls him effeminate. Romeo's masculinity is questioned by the friar when he says he's an unseemly woman in a seeming man, and Romeo himself questions whether Juliet's love has made him effeminate. Now, the prince can maybe be seen as the best display of masculinity because he is impartial, he is fair, and he opposes civil violence. The motifs. Motifs are recurring structures, contrasts, and literary devices that can help to develop and inform the text's major themes. The first motif we see is that of light and dark. So Romeo compares Juliet to light throughout the play. Romeo is compared with light that illuminates the dark, and basically their love is the light that shines brightly in the darkness of the feud. Nighttime is a motif. Nighttime is a time when people can let go of their inhibitions. It is a place that provides privacy and a place for boldness. And nighttime in the play holds all of the lovers' significant moments together. They meet at nighttime, they pledge their love to each other at nighttime on the balcony, they have their wedding night at night, obviously, and they commit suicide at night. Symbols in the play. Symbols are objects, characters, figures, and colors used to represent abstract ideas or concepts. So the first symbol, or the only symbol, is that of poison. Now, the friar explains that the poison that he makes is made from herbs, and these herbs are not inherently poisonous, but the way he manipulates them makes them poisonous. And so we see these natural substances that are made fatal by human beings. And we also see the duality of the poison. The fake poison that Juliet takes actually leads to her real death in the end because of the confusion that it brings. And the feud is symbolic. It's a symbolic poison because it poisons the lover's love and it leads to their death. Love is heavy and light, bright and dark, hot and cold, sick and healthy, asleep and awake. It's everything except what it is. Act 1, Scene 1.